The business effectively failed.
Why do it again?
There's nothing like being absolutely broke, staring down the barrel of homelessness to give you motivation. I had made money and I had lost it. I did not want to make the same mistake. You must be profitable as quickly as possible to replicate and grow that model. Sleep is the cornerstone of achieving success. We had so many phone calls, it was impossible to put the phone down.
Our guest today didn't just spot a gap in the beauty industry, he dragged cosmetic lasers out of the exclusive clinics and into everyday life. Babak Moini is the co-founder of Laser Clinics Australia, the chain that completely rewrote the playbook for cosmetic treatments. What started with one clinic in 2008 became over 80 clinics by the time of its sale to private equity. And today, Laser Clinics is a global brand with more than 200 locations worldwide. Welcome, Babak. It's good to have you.
Andrew, absolute pleasure to be here. It's been a long time in the making.
Your entrepreneurial journey, you came here when you were very, very young from Iran. Tell us a little bit more about that experience before we start talking about the founding of Laser Clinics.
Mate, I've got to tell you, when you come from a different country, countries have different rules. In Iran, think about it in a sporting analogy. We play football. You come to Australia, you play cricket. And this applies throughout all the countries. So everything is different. What works in Iran does not work in Australia. In Iran, it's all about a university education. You've got to study hard because an engineer makes 100 times what a plumber makes. It's very different in Australia. And it took a long, even though I came to Australia when I was 7, I was still a product of what I had learned from Iran and what was around me for the first 10, 15 years when I was in Australia. So I grew up understanding the rules in Iran, but I did not understand it in Australia. So my journey has been delayed by 20, 25 years over what it should have been because I followed the traditional advice. You've got to study really hard at school. You've got to go to university. You've got to get a job. You've got to climb the corporate ladder. And it took me a long time to realize that's not, firstly, that's going to put you in the upper middle class, but it's never going to put you on the harbour. And it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. So I had to find what worked for me, but I had to break out of the paradigm. I had to undo the learning I had to be able to get into and to understand the system, to articulate it in my mind, and to be able to push forward on that.
So was there no entrepreneurial spirit in Iran at all?
I wasn't exposed to it. And in Iran, it's a different system. It's a system where corruption can easily occur, and it's people with government connections who do better. And if you look at, for instance, in Australia, so you go to a retail store, you rent the retail store, you've got a 5-year lease, you've got an option, and, so it's a standard arrangement. In Iran, once you have leased a shop, you've basically leased it for life. For someone else to get that store, they need to come round and buy their rights. And it's called like key money to be able to get that store. So what I had learnt and what I'd been exposed to in Iran was very different to here. So even though there was an entrepreneurial spirit in Iran, the rules were very different. And I had to understand the rules locally. Okay.
And you came to Australia for a better life? Your family came to Australia for a better life? Is that initially what it was about?
I think it was just in reality, we were in Iran, upper middle class, and my parents had gone through a divorce. I think it was just a temporary reset of mum's life, and that temporary reset, we fell in love with the country immediately on arriving at the airport, and we knew this was home.
You just felt like home straight away?
Immediately. Yeah, it's,
okay.
Just seeing the greenery around, we landed in Melbourne, seeing the greenery. It was very different to Tehran. And we thought, wow, this is a very different experience. I remember on the first day I experienced what was my first Kit Kat, and I thought it was the greatest experience in my life. And I thought, I need to be here. The Kit Kats, I don't want to leave this place.
Still like Kit Kats?
Okay, I know this is being recorded. I do, but I'm on Ozempic, so I have fewer Kit Kats than I normally do.
Okay, no actual doctorate knowledge about that at all?
About
That's
Kit
fine,
Kat
yeah.
or you don't you need to have a break, have a Kit Kat. You don't need
Educational purposes only.
if that's what I've got to say, sure.
No, it's fine. Okay, so you're entrepreneur. So you said you always knew what you wanted to do, or you always wanted to break free from the regular trap. Was it always?
No, Andrew, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I was about 30 years old. Until I realized I had made a monumental mistake. I became an actuary. An actuary is an expert in mathematics probability. It took me years to become an actuary. It's a long course, and then you had to do this correspondence course part-time via, it was at the time through London. I had spent almost a decade becoming an actuary, and when I became an actuary, I realized it wasn't the right job for me. I hated it. But the problem is I had put a decade of my life getting to that point, and what do? You've spent all that time coming to that point. Do you continue? Well, it was a very hard decision because I understand the concept of a sunk cost. If I spend $30 and go to the movies and I absolutely hate the movie, and am I going to sit there all the way to the end of the movie because I've already paid $30? No, I'm going to get up and leave. So what I did around age 30, I wanted an exit. I wanted an exit from working in insurance, working in actuarial, working in the corporate field. I'm very outgoing. I couldn't imagine spending the rest of my life sitting at a desk looking at logarithm tables.
Sounds horrible. It sounds absolutely horrible. But leads me to the next point. Laser Clinics Australia. Was that your first main business that you started? Was there other businesses in the meantime?
Yeah. Before there was Laser Clinics Australia, there was Australian Laser Clinics, and I'll come to that shortly. But before that, my father had set up a small souvenir business in the Queen Victoria building. It was 23 square meters. And in his first week of opening that business, he made more money than I was making as an actuary. And that's without having to go and work, study for 10 years, having to work in a corporate job he didn't like. And he was out and about with his friends having coffee outside the shop. And in his second week, he made double the money I would make. And by the end of the second month, he was making a fortune. And I thought, if he can do this from a 23 square meter store, why am I working as an actuary? So my brother and I managed to find 2 souvenir stores in Cairns, and I was off and running with my journey, and that was in 1997. And it was not long before the Sydney Olympics, and that's when the souvenir game was really kicking off. And so we made a mini fortune doing souvenirs from 1997 till about 2004.
Okay. And then from 2004, you got out of that business, you sold that business, you continued. Because obviously souvenirs not forever, right?
Yep. So we bought the underlying properties there. Mm-hmm. We owned the properties. We sold the properties, and we did very well out of the property investment because we were our own tenants. And souvenirs, every business, every industry has a start point and it has an end point. There's 2 things to get right here. You always need to know when to get in, and you've got to know more importantly, when to get out. So we got out of the souvenir game when we knew the end was near, and we managed to sell the shop. So as part of that journey, we did very well out of the souvenir game, but it was time to move on. And concurrently with having the souvenir business, because within the first 2 weeks of opening the souvenir business, I was making more money than my boss was as an actuary. Within the first couple of months, I was making more money than my boss's boss. And then after that, all my bosses put together. I thought, this is a no-brainer. This is what I've got to do, business. So as I was making money from the souvenir business, at the time I thought about the concept of laser hair removal, which started me off on my very first business, which was Australian laser clinics.
Mm-hmm. Australian laser clinics. You started that by yourself?
I started that with Dr. Ronald Binneter, who was an ophthalmic surgeon, but he was one of the pioneers of laser eye surgery in Australia.
Okay.
I had met him as a patient, and I had approached him to rent some rooms from him. He had multiple practices, and he asked whether he could invest in the business. And I was more than happy to get Dr. Binneter on my team.
Guess versus Goliath. Laser clinics versus Endota Spa. How did you persuade customers to choose laser clinics removal and injectables in a retail clinic over a facial and massage in a luxury spa?
Very simple answer. Their model is fluff. You don't get results. With ours was you walk in with wrinkles, you walk out, you've had Botox, your wrinkles are gone. You walk in with small lips, you've got big lips. You walk in with hair, that hair's gone. Over there, you're getting facials, which is fluff. It achieves nothing.
Yeah, okay.
We outsmarted them.
So you started this business, you rented a room. Was laser hair removal, was that even a thing?
No, what had happened, this is your audience may not remember what I'm about to say. A long time ago, on Channel 9, there was a newsreader called Brian Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And he was huge. He was the biggest newsreader, and every night at 6 p.m., people were glued to their TV. This is Brian Henderson. This is the 6 o'clock news. And at the end of every news at around 6:30, they would talk about something that was new or something that was interesting. There was a cat caught in a tree and, there's a kid had climbed to get this cat. Brian Henderson talked about something new in Australia. Finally, laser hair removal has come to Australia. It's fast, it's permanent, it's efficient, and it's in Australia. Now, all my life, I had struggled with excess body hair. Now, I'm happy to show the camera. No hair now. So, the beard you have, I had in year 6.
He was born with a beard.
It's baby fluff. It's going to fall off. So what happened is I thought, I need this solution. Let me go and have the treatment. Now, I went and had the treatment. It was one of the worst experiences I had. At the time, this is the year 1998. I paid $2,000 to effectively get burnt and to sit there in agonizing pain. But I was so convinced that people would undertake this treatment because being from an ethnic community, I understood the issue with excess hair within, all the Middle East, within all of Southern Europe. And in fact, I had seen it amongst my European friends. So I knew it was an issue, but I knew that I had to do it cheaper than what the provider provided, at a better service, at more convenient locations. That's what initially got me started on the journey of setting up Australian laser clinics. Okay,
you set up Australian laser clinics. Then how did Laser Clinics Australia come about?
Okay, so what happened is, and this is a lesson that I'd like to pass on to your audience. When you suddenly find success and everyone comes and pats you on the back and tells you you're a genius, by the time you don't believe the first person, you don't believe the second person, by the time the 20th person's telling you you're a genius, you believe it. And what happens is you become arrogant. So Australian laser clinics did very well from the period 1999 to 2004. But because I believed that I was smarter than everyone else, I believed I was a better businessman than anyone else, I believed my model was better than anyone else, I took my eye off the game. And I didn't have any business training. I was only learning on the job.
Mm-hmm.
The business effectively failed. It became insolvent. And I had no choice. But in the year, I think it was the around 20th of May 2006, that business was placed into liquidation. There was no way to meet my debts. And what had happened? I started off in a vacuum. I was the only provider in 1999, 2000, 2001. And people were just knocking our doors down to get to that laser service. So operating in a vacuum, it's easy to be successful. If you're the only coffee store in the country, you're going to have a line around the block. The issue is we got a lot of competition, and the competition ended up being in retail locations. We were open. We had multiple locations. We were open 2 days a week at multiple locations. These guys were open 7 days a week. They had a better service. They did local marketing, and the owner was at the clinic, every single clinic. I had multiple locations. I couldn't be everywhere at the same time. So my competitors ended up with a comparative advantage, and I was unaware that I was drowning. I was blissfully ignorant of that until it occurred. And this goes back to where I started the conversation. Remember, I didn't have any business training. I studied as an actuary. They don't teach you about payroll tax. They don't teach you about cash flow management. They don't teach you about human resources and marketing. So on every level, I was failing. But in my mind, I considered myself a genius. What could go wrong?
So you got a little bit arrogant.
Oh, not a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a little bit. It's just, and I learned a very valuable lesson. Stay humble. Always stay humble. Work hard, stay humble.
It's quite an inspirational story, especially coming from nothing. I mean, I've gone through, which we've had this conversation before, where I've gone through a similar experience where I thought I was too good. And then life has a way of teaching you a very valuable lesson.
Yeah. Andrew, my son, you and I had dinner at Meat and Wine Company at Barangaroo about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was even a profound lesson for me, hearing your journey, because it resonated with me, with my journey. But the most important thing is my son left that dinner knowing he wouldn't make the same mistakes as either you or I had made.
Yeah, that's the most important.
And one of the reasons we have bonded, we have become such close friends, is we've had a similar journey.
Yeah, well, I mean, Babak, it's not just me to look up to you, but I'm sure a lot of other people will look up to you as well. Especially, I've seen your kids; they all look up to you, and it's for a reason.
Mate, I'm short. No one looks up to me.
Okay, so why, if you've gone through this situation where laser hasn't worked out, the competition's heating up, why do it again?
I had a year to reflect. I had very recently been divorced. I had 3 very young children and an ex-wife, and I felt a sense of responsibility to ensure that they were well taken care of. Mm-hmm. And I knew, there's nothing like being absolutely broke and staring down the barrel of homelessness to give you motivation to get back on the horse. I knew everything that needed to be done. I knew every mistake I'd made. I just had to have one opportunity to do it again. And I knew that this time I would have a much better go at it. And this time, more importantly, I would check my arrogance at the door. I didn't want to have it because it was the arrogance that brought me unstuck.
So when you say arrogance, was it just like you were not caring as much anymore? Was it you making the same mistake where you couldn't be told what to do? What do you mean by the arrogance?
No,
just so no one else can make the same mistake.
When Australian laser clinics found a lot of success, I felt all of that was me. I didn't realize I was at the right place at the right time.
Okay, right.
It's rarely one individual. It's always a series of events. And, of course, put me down as 10% as part of that equation. In reality, I thought it was 100% of that equation. And I had to understand that it wasn't me. It was a whole series of factors and a little bit of me as well.
Okay. Would you consider any of it would luck played a part in any of it at all?
Andrew, I walk past, and unfortunately, this is a phenomena around the world. I see a lot of homeless people everywhere. And what goes through my mind when I see the homeless is that it could have been me. Luck plays such a monumental part in any journey. Absolutely, I've worked hard. I've worked harder than almost anyone else I know, but I know people who've worked harder than me. I know people who've been smarter than me, but they're living in public housing. So the luck in my life, I had excess body hair. Without that, I would never have known about this. The luck in my time is I saw Brian Henderson on the news. The luck in my time, I was the very first to open this up. Had I done this 5 years later, I wouldn't have been on your podcast.
We don't, even being in Australia, it's like the opportunity is like, I lived in Dubai for many years. There's no welfare there.
I'll give you another one. There are, by the time, just to be born, you've won this genetic lottery. Think about the billions and billions and billions of, I'm not going to complete this sentence, for you to have been conceived, for you to have been born. And then not just to have been born in a Western country, to have been born in Australia, to grow up in Sydney. We are the most fortunate of the fortunate. But then you and I have taken that, fortunately, to one extra level beyond that.
Everyone that I've, and I say this in almost every podcast that I do, but everyone that I've always met, though, has a certain gene. They've all said the same thing. They're all born that way. Everyone's born that way. They just got this like, I'm just going to do it and no one's going to tell me to stop. Every person that I've ever sold that I've spoken to that's been successful has said the same thing. Yeah,
there are certainly traits. There are, look, I can talk to 10-year-old kids and I can tell you which one's going to be more likely successful and which one's not. And it's something that's almost hardwired in you. If I look at my 3 children, same parents, all 3 are very different. They're just born differently. They're programmed differently, and it's hardwired in us from birth. But you certainly need all the luck along the way as well.
Totally. So leading to Laser Clinics Australia, you knew what you were capable of. You made your mistakes. You started again. Tell us how that journey began, because I understand you had a business partner.
I did. Alistair Champion.
Yep.
Great friend of mine, lovely guy. Hopefully he's listening. Hey, Al. So we came up, in effect, I had always known, and to make this easier, full credit to Alistair and I, it's easier to talk by using the word I. I thought about the space and I knew prices, there were multiple problems in the space. And I thought about the space heavily around the years 2005, 2006, 2007. The number one issue in the space was it was expensive. So no one had done discount laser hair removal. People were doing it slightly cheaper. Instead of $2,000, they were charging $1,200, but there was no one charging $10. That just didn't exist. I was on a flight and I read an article on one of the Business Review weeklies. It was about Ryanair. And because of Ryanair, discount airlines had taken off. And the volume of people flying had exponentially increased. I thought to myself, if this is working for airlines, why can't it work for cosmetic treatments? Why has this never been done? And if I looked around the industry, it was dominated predominantly by dermatologists, by plastic surgeons, by cosmetic surgeons, and all of them were determined to have the highest price. And their attitude was, You're lucky to see me. I'm Dr. Laser. You see me, you're lucky. You've got to make an appointment. So people were begging to give $1,000, $3,000 at a time to have an appointment. I thought, why do we run it this way? And then I reflected in terms of when I was young, no one used to drive. So no one used to fly between Sydney and Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, unless you were very wealthy. We'd all get in the car, we'd drive, even if it was one person. You would drive. It was too expensive. But then you had the likes of Compass Airlines and Jetstar and Virgin. Then it became a commodity. People just flew, and the airlines became less about providing a service. We're just going to get you from destination A to destination B. I thought we could do the same thing for laser hair removal. Why don't we set up a business? And initially, Alistair and I came up with the name Discount Laser Clinics. Now, for a variety of reasons, we changed the name, but we thought, let people know this is a cheaper service. And the first thing we did is we thought about a cheaper price. The second thing is, before us, almost every provider was in a commercial building. You want to see Dr. Laser, you've got to go to the 11th floor of the building at 123 Macquarie Street, and he's only open a couple of hours a day, 3 days a week. So you had to work around them in a location that wasn't convenient. Thirdly, the hardest thing about running a laser clinic is having an owner-operator on site. So we decided to have owners at every single clinic. So if a staff member says, I can't come in today, the owner of the clinic can manage a sick leave rather than Alistair and I having 80 locations and trying to find replacement for all those 80 people. We put everything in a retail setting, so it was very cheap for people to find out about us. And I know you've made your money from marketing, but we thought, what's the cheapest way to get our message out there? And the cheapest way was to open a corner location, to get a really big display on the front to say laser hair removal from $9. People would see that. They wouldn't believe it because we were $9. The cheapest person was $900. They would almost have car crashes, or they'd run their prams into each other to come into the store. So we did a lot of things differently from the outset. And in many cases, you will know from the moment you open your door whether what the business you have is going to be successful or not. If customers haven't beaten down your doors in the first month, it's not going to happen. We had so many phone calls, it was impossible to put the phone down. The moment the phone call stopped, the other one would come in. It was instantaneous.
So it's funny you say that. You don't know this, but back in 2011, I think I was, when I worked for my last marketing company before I started my business, I remember speaking to Alistair Champion because I was the account manager of Laser Clinics. We're doing your marketing for you. And he told me, I could be wrong, but from what I remember, he told me he was spending $500,000 a month on a call center. Would I be correct saying that? It was some ludicrous amount of money.
We had 20 people working in the call center plus a manager. So 20 people. At the time, the average wages were $50,000 in that call center. Let's say 20 times that is $1 million plus a manager, call it 1.1 plus add-on costs. That becomes 1.4, 1.5. So it would be a bit less than that.
I just remember it telling me, and I'm like,
we always like to put a bit of sauce on whatever we say.
Maybe he was just trying to
you just need to.
I'm pretty sure I remember that number.
Yeah, look, I think that's it would be a bit based on the back of the envelope calculations, a bit less than that, but still, if you think about that, was $30,000 a week we were spending on a call center. In addition, actually, Alistair makes sense because at every single location, we also had a person who was picking up the phone calls. And at the time, we had about 20 locations.
Okay.
So add another,
maybe
add another 30 people because those clinics were open 70 hours a week, so you needed 2 people.
I just remember when he told me, I'm like, that's wild.
I don't think it's far off the mark.
So how did you do it so cheap?
It was, so we had to think about this is, let's say you own a hotel and you've got 50 rooms in the hotel. And let's assume you have rented out 30 rooms. You've got 20 rooms free, and it's 4 p.m. If you don't rent out those rooms, how much are you going to collect from those remaining 20 rooms?
Yeah.
Zero. What if I said to you, you've rented out the other rooms at $500 a night, but I can get you $200 a night for the remaining rooms? Of course you take it. You've just picked up $4,000. What we banked on, which came exponentially true, that our prices are going to be so low that our lasers are going to be used 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. The majority of people out there were using their lasers, if they were lucky, 5% of the time. So we had 20 times more usage of our lasers than anyone else. Secondly, the average price of buying a laser when Alistair and I set up was $150,000. We thought, and it cost about $40,000 a year to run these lasers. So very high costs. We thought, how do we work our way around this? So we managed to source these lasers overseas directly. We managed to set up our own service team to service these lasers and to source all the consumables, and we cut our laser costs by about 80%. So when your input costs are 80% below anyone else's, the market can't compete with you. And you've got this clear runway of several years ahead of your competitors.
Yeah, so you knew you had a good runway. Eventually, competitors were going to catch up.
Of course they will.
They will.
Of course, that happens with everything. Okay. Whatever you do, competitors will look at you and they'll copy you.
Yeah, because then you had all the retail stores and even all the leases have gone up now. It'd be a lot harder to do now than...
Oh, look, I certainly would not be opening any business like Laser Clinics Australia today. I thought it was the perfect business for its time, but there is a time for everything.
Yeah.
And that, you'll still make money, but it won't be what it was before, because too many people are doing this, and now people are cutting laser clinics prices by 50%. And they've all gone right down the bottom, and the consumer now expects
it's a race to the bottom.
And it tends to be like that in any industry.
Yeah. That leads me to my next question. You mentioned something about the did you have a franchise model that you were rolling out? Is that how you helped you scale?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of firsts in laser clinics. One of the firsts that we came up with was, prior to us, people would have a franchise. So, you own a Domino's pizza, I'm going to give you 100% of the franchise. You own this, you give us a percentage of your turnover, and you buy everything from us. Now, whether that was Boost Juice and there was Domino's or it was Pizza Hut, it was all part and parcel of that franchising model. Or you'd say the company is 100% corporate owned. Neither one of those models appealed to us. What did we want? We believed in the business. We didn't just want to collect a franchise fee. We wanted to get some of the profit from these clinics. So we came up with a model. Why don't I go into business with you, Andrew? Mm-hmm. You now own Laser Clinics Australia Chatswood. You work there and you get paid a salary there. You work there and you get half the profits there. We run head office. We collect a franchise fee and we collect half the profits. Now, typically at the time, now this is going back to the year, 2008, 9, 10, 11, the typical person who would become a franchisee with us was earning, in the corporate world, roughly an $80,000 package. They would work for us and they would receive $100,000 salary, but from the distributions they would make roughly an additional $200,000 a year.
Okay.
So they've gone from making $80,000 to making $300,000. Plus, they don't have a boss. Plus, they're loving life and feeling very important. But on the other side, Alistair and I are making a fortune. And it enables us to roll out this model quickly because we're using someone else's capital as well. Plus, we're using their time. If Alistair and I ran these, we may be able to open 5 clinics, 15 clinics at the max, but we couldn't have opened up 80 clinics. And you needed that model. And after we set up that joint venture franchise model, the market went crazy over this model because they realized this is the right model. See, it's hard for me to convince you to part with your money to buy 100% of a business. But it's really easy for you to say, Babak's putting in his money. This must be a good bet. He's risking his money. Let me put my money down.
Never to 10 found day cliches. Do you agree? Move fast and break things.
Totally 10 out of 10. If you don't do that, your competitors get an edge on you.
It's all about the hustle. Sleep when you're dead.
I'll go back to my earlier answer. 0 on that. Sleep is the cornerstone of achieving success. I'm anti-hustle. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be driven. You've got to be legitimate.
So you went from lasers and then you offered a whole bunch of other services. Is that when the business started to become really profitable? I remember reading somewhere it was doing upwards of $50 million at EBIT a year.
Yeah, that sounds right. It took a while to get to that figure. No, actually, I think he was of the order of 40 million.
Yeah, that's what it said online, whether it was true or not.
Yeah. Assuming the tax office isn't listening to this, you must be including the cash. 0. I can see your audience laughing in the background. Joking, Deputy Commissioner, joking. So, look, it was the business. It was day one, we opened the doors and we got inundated. And one of the unique things about our model was we know you're going to need 6 sessions of laser hair removal. So it was, let's say, on average, $100 a session. You would come in and you'd give me $600. So my cash flow from day one was very good because I was collecting money for future treatments. Yeah. So, and on average, the redemption rate of those were you'd pay for 6, but you'd come for an average of 3.5. You just forget about it. It's like you buy.
Is that everyone? On average,
that was. I don't quite remember the statistics. It was certainly no more than 4.5. It was. So what happens is, if you look at there's a lot of service-based businesses, such as I can come and buy you for your birthday a massage voucher. Now, there's probably only a 40% chance of you redeeming that voucher. Gift vouchers tend to be, for the services industry, they tend not to be redeemed much. And in particular, prepays are not actively used. So what would happen is, even though we had lower prices, the redemption rate was certainly lower than 100%. So we would end up being very cash flow positive from day one.
Okay. It's crazy when you think about it. Even in Dubai, the gym market in Dubai, you have to pay in advance. In Australia, you don't. Like you have to pay 6 months or 12 months in advance.
I hope they give you a better body for that.
Yeah, no, I think so. So leading to all this, you've gone through the headache, you've scaled it. You said something before, you need to know the right time to get out. And then when you finally get out, a number hits your bank account, which is probably foreign to 99.999% of the population.
I remember it didn't fit on the screen. That was like, it really knocked me out. So I'd never seen so many digits, and I worked as an actuary.
Okay. So how does that feel? Like, I think everyone wants to know, like, oh, I won the lottery, and this must have felt pretty similar.
Andrew, I'm going to say it's the opposite to what you're saying, and it goes down to my experience. I had made money and I had lost it, and I had become humble. I did not want to make the same mistake again. I did not allow it. I mean, even sitting here today, I can see your shoes, I can see my shoes. Happy to hold these up. Mm-hmm. These are the cheapest Nikes you can get. Yours look a bit more expensive. I still wear, Zara shirts. You open my cupboards.
I bought you Temu shirts. You still got to pick them up.
I only wear fitted shirts. That's the problem. So what's happened is I've chosen to have the same life, but it's enabled me to never have to worry again. And it's enabled me to not stress. And learning to not stress is one of the most important things you can do. All my life I had been more driven than anyone else I knew. And then I used those funds hitting my accounts to learn how to unwind and how to become a different person and to enjoy what I consider the last period of my life. You could divide my life into 5 segments. I'm convinced since the year 2014, after the first sale, 2017, second sale, I'm in the last phase of my life. And I consider this the best phase of my life. And that amount hitting my account has enabled me to achieve what I've always wanted.
Okay. So you've achieved it, and a lot of the entrepreneurs we talk about here is about they've sold their business or they've made their money, but they continue to build other companies. You're different.
This is...
It's not about you not wanting to build any more companies. You're still making money doing numerous other things. But what's different about it?
Yeah. The thing is, I'm 60 years old. I don't know when I go to sleep tonight whether I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I know that people around my age, mortality gets higher. Mortality rates get higher. I want to enjoy my life. I only needed one good business idea. I didn't need any more than that. In reality, if you said to me, come and work with me for the next 10 years, and I'm going to guarantee you're going to have 300 million in your bank account, I'm going to deposit this in your solicitor's trust account today, I'd say, Andrew, I can't get those 10 years back. And I would still wearing the exact same T-shirt, same jeans, same shoes. My life would not change. I took the active decision. And this was a really hard thing to do, because when you have this internal drive, to learn to cut this internal drive, to learn to enjoy your life, my favorite activity now is sleeping. And I think sleep is one of the most underrated things you can do. But my life is about zero stress. So what I've chosen to do nothing. And my analysis, when I look at others, and I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, I know a lot of them, I tell them, you're making a mistake. If you have several 100 million, what is the purpose of you continuing to work? And it's good to learn to slow down. Of course, I still invest my money. I invest it with a family office. I've got numerous property holdings, but I don't do anything directly.
Okay, but with other people that I've spoken to that have worked, it comes from the WOG mentality. They've worked 30, 40 years, and as soon as they stop is when they die. You get me? You're the only person that I've ever met, ever, that has just managed to stay so sufficiently happy, confident, but busy at the same time.
Yeah. So when, we're great friends, we're close friends, we catch up. The number of occasions we'll message each other to have dinner. I go, sorry, I'm busy for the next 2.5 weeks. I don't have any time. I go out every single day. I heavily socialize. I think socializing is one of the cornerstones to human evolution. Mm-hmm. It's very good for the soul. Every day I spend an hour and a half at the gym. It's my happy place. If I miss a day of the gym, I start stressing. Every day I read the newspapers for a couple of hours. Every week I catch up with my parents. Every week I catch up with my kids. Now, I have 3 massages a week. Each one of them is an hour and a half. I go to the sauna twice a week. By the time you do all of these, I don't have time to turn the TV on. There's all these series I want to watch, which I just don't get around to because I'm just too busy. And I enjoy being busy, and I enjoy not having anything on my mind so I can enjoy life. But the most important thing for me, coming back to what my favorite activity is, sleeping. My sleep routine is about 10 hours. I'm in bed, I'm asleep for about 8.5, 9 hours a night. I mean, that takes out a significant chunk of your day.
I think it's important for every entrepreneur to understand is that sometimes you do need to switch off. Because I'm still at that age where I can't. I physically can't. My work is my life.
Andrew, if this is what I found, but I only found this out after 30 years of working. It's the downtime which is as important as the work time. You need to, I learned meditation a few years ago. I don't do it now, but when I'm doing something, so I'm talking to you, I'm only talking to you. I'm present. My mind is not elsewhere. The old me, my mind would have been everywhere. I think learning stress control and learning to only think about your work at the times you're on. You might say, 12 hours a day, I'm going to be thinking about work, but the remaining 12 hours, that's your time. Switch out.
And is that something you had to learn?
It took me until age 53 to master it, but I only started around age 43 to try to master it. It took me 10 years in reality to learn how to switch off. And my biggest gripe with people who are successful is that they don't know how to switch off. They come to me and they say, I wake up at 5 a.m. every day so I can do the gym. I go, what time do you sleep? They're sleeping at, 11 p.m., midnight. 5-6 hours of sleep is not sufficient. It's one of the worst things you can do for your health. They don't take care of their health. They're taking care of their wealth, but it goes together. You need quality of life, quantity of life, but you need quality of life. And being fit, healthy, present is one of the cornerstones to happiness.
You talk a lot about longevity now. Is that something you only did after you sold the business and stopped working?
I had to have what I consider to have relatively poor blood tests to wake me up to know I'm pre-diabetic. There's been a history of heart disease in the family. I'm fallible. Did I just make up a word? I'm not infallible. Maybe that's correct. And that woke me up to take care of my health. The more I got into exercise, the more I enjoyed it. And the more I realized it removed the stress I had in my life. It used to be, if I had stress, I'd go, let me take a Valium. It distresses you, but you're far better off going for a 7-kilometer run. You feel much better and you don't need to take medication. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I wish I had started that earlier. Laser Clinics Australia would have been far more successful had I had my sleep right in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and if I took the same attitude to exercise at the time, because it grounds you and enables you to focus well.
Awesome. Babak, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it, not only for your business mindset, but as a friend. You're a great guy. You're humble. You're a gentleman. Thank you so much for coming in.
Same to you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Great.
What I love about Babak's story is that it proves reinvention doesn't just happen in tech. He took an industry built on exclusivity and flipped it into accessibility. He showed us that growth isn't about chasing fads. It's about seeing where the customer really wants to go and building the bridge before anyone else does. Babak Moini, thank you for joining me on Never Not Building.